Hello everybody, my name is Lasantaranavira. Now I am going to demonstrate policy-based medical record system developed using OpenMRS. This work has done part of my master degree in information security conducted in University of Columbus School of Computing. In overview, we have customized authorization of OpenMRS to support many features. Here is a policy-based OpenMRS system deployed in Apache Tomcat server. When you log into the system as admin user, you can see submenu called manage policies introduced into the system. Under this manage policies, there are several submenus: add policy, policy migration, attribute management, and context management. To demonstrate features of the system, I need to create a user in the system. So now I'm going to create a user. I'm going to give my name. And give username as my name also. And I'm going to assign him clinician role. So this user should be able to log into the system now. But though he is able to log into the system, he cannot use certain services in the system. For example, this find patient service. This is because still he has not been assigned with privileges. To assign privileges, admin user can use XAML based policy. If admin user wish to write XAML based policy from scratch, with the variables we are using, the system supports such the system can handle policies. But and also we provide a functionality called policy migration to support admin user rather than writing policy from scratch. So now when you log into the system again as admin user and go into the policy management section, and there is something called policy migration. In this policy migration section, you can see a list of users already in the system and their roles, and also special variable called virtual role created based on the roles in the assigned with user, because OpenMRS has hierarchical role based system and each user can have many roles. So we need to create this virtual role to assign privileges in XAML policy. So, and also the policy generation supports both role based and user based generation methodologies, but we recommend to use role based policy generation because user based policy generated with user based methodology will be very big and it's hard to maintain such policies. But there can be situations where administration user needs to generate user based policy. So I'm going to generate policy based on role based methodology, and now I have this policy and I'm going to show you what it contains here. So in high level it has virtual role and list of privileges assigned with this user, this role actually. So now I am going to deploy this policy into the system using add policy section. So I'm going to give it as test policy, test, and save policy. Now privileges related to clinician role is assigned. Now when you log in as clinician again, he or she can do the find patient service. In next part of this demonstration, we're going to customize this policy and take advantages provided by XAML. First, we will try to use environmental property in the system. As environmental property, we use system time. So, using this system time, we are going to limit access one service on only for a certain duration. So, what to do that, I am going to introduce condition to this view patient privilege. So, what it does is it gives certain duration, and user is only allowed to use this service in this duration. So, and I am going to see what's the time now. Now time is 10:57 p.m. I am going to allow user to access this service until 10:59. So what I am going to do is I am going to deploy this policy again, removing existing policy. So under manage policies, I am going to remove this one, and I am going to give it as environmental policy, env, and save policy. I log into the system again as Lasanta and see what will happen. Yeah, user can still access service because it's the time is not reached the given end time. So we'll wait couple of minutes and see what will happen. Okay, now let's see what's the time now. It's 23, it's past 22:59, and let's see what will happen when a clinician try to find patient service. It gives an error. So a user will not allow to access service after the specified time range. This is how we can use environmental based attributes with XAML policy. Under the next customization, we're going to introduce usage based attributes with XAML. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a condition, again another condition into this XAML policy. It says, what it says is give access to this service only the variable given here is read count is less than 5. So actually now this read count is attribute we are going to introduce into the system. Now I am going to deploy this XAML policy first as admin user. To give it as usage policy, usage and save policy. Now I show you this read count variable in this policy. So now I need to add this into define it using this attribute management section. To do that, I am going to add attribute, an attribute name as one same as in XAML policy, and attribute type means attribute which belongs. Now here attribute will be belongs to subject, so I'll attribute type as subject, and data type is integer. Here I give it as integer, and I'm going to assign this to clinician, and there is something called change strategy. Change strategy means the value provided with this attribute will either it can be dynamic or static. Dynamic attributes increment their value the value given into initial section with each successful access. Static values won't change their given initial value. So now I am going to give an initial value as 1. So that means every time this user use this service with this attribute, the value will be incremented by 1. So what will happen now? I am going to log in again as a clinician. Going to find John. Yeah, I'll be allowed to do that. One thing to notice is here is this is a Ajax based request. With each request, actually attribute will be incremented by 2. So now actual attribute value will be 3. So I am going to again go as John. Still he is allowed, and third time I am going again and till not be allowed, because now value is actual value is more than 5. So this way you can limit access to certain services based on their usage. In last part of this customizations, now I am going to demonstrate obligation with security policy. Obligation means user is allowed to do certain activities if he or she manages to satisfy one or more conditions. In this OpenMRS customization, we support obligations in permit condition. So actually what we going to demonstrate is this obligation as a token which provided by system admin, and user should know this token before using certain services. So I have introduced this obligation into this XACML policy, and I am going to deploy it as my system's policy. What it says, user should support obligation ID, this obligation ID, and I'm going to save it. And in addition to adding policy, he or she needs to give his obligation value as a token. Here I'm going to add obligation and give obligation the obligation name as what we specified in this XACML policy, and I'm going to give a context, that's a business context actually, and some description, and I'm going to assign it into clinician role and a value to this token. That means user should know this token provided in the system. So I'm going to give it as 789 and going to save obligation. Now what will happen, user log into the system and nothing happens, and actually he needs to find patient to see what will happen, and it says an error, you haven't set up configuration for obligation. To set up obligations, user has this menu, so he can go that menu and see the obligation and provide the value which he has received from some way. So let's say he has assigned value with 987, and what will happen? Still he is not allowed to access service since obligation value is wrong. So next again he go into this section and give correct value. Now he should be able to access service. Yeah, now he so that's it. Lot more improvements can be done with this work. Please send your feedback into lasantha@opensource.lk email address. Thanks for listening and have a nice day.